Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, welcome to the Simulationist podcast, iteration 58. It is the 13th of October, 2013, and I am Josh Levin, as I always am, and with me, as always,
is a very stuffed Ryan Kirkby.
Stuffed with stuffing, because
yes.
It's Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
For the Canadians out there, for the Americans, Happy Columbus Day. Although it does seem there's a nice counter-current swelling against it being a Columbus Day, given the fact he was not the nicest of people in reality. I know Matt Iman from the Oatmeal is trying to get that changed, or at least acknowledge that Columbus was not a nice guy. But there were some very nice people who wound up finding themselves and finding their soul when they ventured to the New World.
Yeah, Columbus, well, I guess he was almost like a pirate, kind of, in a way.
Responsible for a lot of slave trade. There was underage sex trade, slavery, it's like 3 continents worth of slavery involved and started up. Forcing people to work until they died to satisfy his lust for gold to bring back to Isabella. You know, you go back empty-handed saying, oh, no, I didn't find, a quick trip to India, but I did find a landmass that can be exploited. It's like, no, that wasn't enough for him. He said, okay, I'm going to put you all over. You saved our lives, by the way. I mean, one of his ships ran aground, and the people there saved his life. Mm-hmm. And then he winds up, forcing them into slavery. Mine the gold, and if you try running away, they chop off your hand and they force you to wear it. Gruesome, dark stuff. He was not a nice guy.
Not a nice guy. Well, we do have, we have Buccaneer Days here in Victoria, and
not quite the same. I mean,
pirates did as bad and worse as what Columbus did, right?
Well, that's the thing is most pirates were created by circumstance.
Yeah. Say that about Columbus.
Well, it's the thing. Well, here's the thing: is that with your average, historical pirate, it's like, well, I can't make an honest living. I guess I'm just going to rob other ships, and that's what they did. And then it's like we capture this ship, and the people on board, well, they come up, up with us, and they're working on side of us the next time we're running a ship. And that's just how it goes. That's how life was. You can't make an honest living down there. You wind up making a dishonest living.
Yeah, well, and
Columbus had 3 ships and just didn't want to return empty-handed, and so he instituted some horrible, horrible practices.
Well, he didn't want to return empty-handed because, I don't know, if you return empty-handed, you start getting, out of favor with the royalty back in Spain.
He really found a nice, easy way for a huge land. He could have said, I can get you all the timber you want. It's effectively like mining gold. All we have to do is chop down these wonderful trees, move them on back, and they're better and richer than the trees you can get here. To say nothing of the foods you can get. Like, imagine Italian cuisine, all the best Italian cuisine. Very little of that is possible without food that originated from the Americas.
So
Tomatoes.
He didn't have to be such a jerk about it.
He could have been a lot more subtle about what there was to have in the New World. He didn't have to come back with gold. That's kind of crude. Yeah, there's riches here. Look at this. All the riches you want. Gold. No. He could have come back, look at this. Everybody in your country will eat wonderfully now.
Well, wait.
It's potatoes.
Oh, well, okay.
Potatoes are from the New World. He could have gone with that. There's pumpkins.
Yeah,
there was
potatoes are from the Andes. Did they have potatoes where he went?
Well, the thing is, they spread. It wasn't just in the Andes.
Okay.
You'd start finding them in some varieties. I mean, anywhere in the New World by the time we got there.
Yeah.
And then you've got your corn. You've got your pumpkins. You've got your tomatoes. Like, just try imagining pasta sauce from Italy without tomato getting involved there.
Okay, well, I can't remember now. I know I've read about Columbus's voyages and stuff, but I'm not sure if he would have encountered every single one of those vegetables.
But it doesn't necessarily need to be that. You just take samples of the food he does find, bring it back and say, we're going to conquer the world, the old world on its stomach. We've got foods that'll just blow you out of your mind, and there's even more there too.
Well,
they're talking about something called cocoa. They go nuts over it. It seems great. Let's go get some. I need another 3 ships to go back.
I don't see the same picture that you're seeing, because a lot of the foods, like imagine trying to bring potatoes or tomatoes. Potatoes might last.
You can sun dry the tomatoes. I mean, that sells for big bucks here now.
Sun dried tomatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But by the time they got back to Spain or whatever, they'd be, I don't know, and people wouldn't know what to do with them. They wouldn't know. In fact, tomatoes, they thought that they were poisonous back up.
Well, see, that causes one of the problems, because the potato plant actually grows little kind of black, kind of almost raisiny type, sometimes tomatoes out of it. That was the original fruit it was supposed to produce before they started cultivating the tuber aspect of it, and those are actually poisonous.
Okay.
So, it was just, like, oh, you eat the red ones, don't eat the black ones. And that's what caused the confusion. It's like, whoa, somebody died eating something that looked like that.
Yeah.
This one's just a lighter color. Keep away from that.
And of course, they learned that eventually, but I'm saying in Columbus's day, tomatoes wouldn't have been an option because they didn't think they could eat them.
Well, corn should have definitely been an option. You bring back corn. There you go.
Yeah.
And that lasts very well on a ship, too.
Okay.
Yeah. So he could have done a lot more subtle things. He could have said, this will make us like the rivals of the rest of Europe with our wonderful cuisines and our greatness and our wonderful cheap well done wood that you just no one else can routinely get the same way that we can. And then bam, could have been enriched that way, but no, he went with gold and slaves.
Yeah.
Which had a very bad survival rate over there. You talk about shipping tomatoes across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
Try people. Try people other people don't see as a human.
Yeah, well, it's always funny ha ha ha, people died, but to read about those voyages, because half of the European crew didn't come back, or sometimes even more than half of the European crew didn't come back.
But these were the same people that saved them.
Yeah.
In their ship, and then they wind up. It's like, oh yeah, it's a 50% survival rate getting back, and then you're brute force labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry. I know you're good for it. You helped save us out of that ship, man. You guys helped do carry all the stuff out of the ship when it was going down. Don't worry.
And
I know you're good for it.
Yes, you can blame Columbus. You can say he was a jerk and he was ruthless and things like that, and he was like cruel or whatever.
Yeah, I think cruel is a nice start to describe him.
But I think he was more ignorant. Well, I think he was technically educated, but I'm not sure what that would have meant in those days. But he would have been more ignorant than we modern people. So he wouldn't have necessarily known about to bring back.
Find different ways to optimize.
Yeah, he wouldn't have known that the world, the agriculture could be revolutionized. I mean, ultimately that happened with the exchange between the New World and Old World. But I don't think Columbus could have. I mean, he was a dumb guy in a lot of ways, because people knew the world was round at that.
Well, that's the thing. Almost everybody knew the world was round. The Greeks proved it 2,000 years ago.
He was a crackpot going to try and sail around the world.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that the whole flat Earth thing, that everyone thought the Earth was flat back then, that originated in the 18th century with historians copying bad stuff and then just making up stuff to make it sound interesting so more people will buy their copy of the book. His thing was that, if we just sail west, we'll wind up being at the east.
Yeah.
And that was the marvelous idea, it's only that round? Like, we can just sail that way and it works? And
well, his whole thing was that he thought the world he had a different calculation for how big the world was.
Yeah.
So he thought the Atlantic and Pacific were the same ocean, and it was only like, I don't know, a few hundred miles across, basically. Well, basically the width of the Atlantic to North America. So, whereas like the prevailing idea of the day, and the correct one, was the actual size of the Earth. I don't know how many thousands of kilometers actually it is.
I do know the radius. No, let's see. I think from pole to pole it's 40,000.8 kilometers. I did some looking up on that a few weeks ago, so.
Okay, and we won't be bothered to insert or look it up on Wikipedia.
Double proof. It's not that far off, but the reason why it's so round, it's so close to like even like 1,000 kilometers is because the meter is originally based off of the length of the world.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like 40,000.8.
They screwed up a little bit.
That's really good math, given the fact they didn't have anything in orbit to help them calculate this stuff out. So, props to those mathematicians there. They did a really accurate job given how comparatively primitive their tools were.
But I will say about Columbus, though, is, like, in that age, a good guy and a smart guy, like a guy who knows what he's doing and a guy who is morally good, wouldn't have started on the voyage in the first place, because it's just...
They probably would have gotten a nice, safe job at an academy, raising the next generation of nobility.
Yeah, something in Europe, something relatively benign. Not necessarily ruling, because those people tend to have bad morals, too.
This is an interesting point you raise, whether or not that it takes a certain kind of, like ruthless bastard to make these, like, what would otherwise be considered stupid or insane trips.
Yeah. And I mean, we have our stupid bastards today. We have, Richard Branson? No, I take that back about saying he's stupid, but I mean, he's got crazy ideas. And Elon Musk, that's those kind of guys. They got
they're doing the SpaceX program. I mean, just the consideration of like a privatized space company even 10 years ago was considered insane, and now they're getting themselves up there and doing stuff for the International Space Station. And that's great.
As far as we know, they're not taking slaves or stealing stuff from indigenous people or killing half their crew on the way, so...
Wouldn't that be weird? You wind up getting like deep inside the SpaceX program only to find a bunch of little gray aliens in shackles? Harsh. Oh man, I wish I could paint. I wish I was an artist. It just evokes such an interesting image. There's layers you could put on that sort of thing, man. Just layers.
Well, I mean, we had District 9 with aliens sort of in that situation.
I think it just started off on such a great premise that aliens come to Earth, but no, it's not New York, no, it's not London, it's not the better part of the world that would react with them in the best benevolent way. It's somewhere where things are a little colder. I'll say, in that sort of regard.
Oh, and
not geographically colder, no, but more of a like a societally colder place. They're less willing to just give to total strangers, especially shrimp-like aliens.
Have we had an alien movie where aliens land in, like, I guess they did in the one by Stephen King in Dreamcatcher, I think it is. The aliens land in Canada or Alaska.
Well, there was Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I mean,
where did they land in that one?
Well, basically on the top of a mountain. Like it wasn't in a city. It was fairly rural.
Yeah.
So.
Well, in some movies they land in like Nevada or whatever because there's
gambling. I mean, come on. You cross several light years. You want some entertainment. You're going to go to Nevada and you are going to enjoy yourself.
I meant because they have advanced technology there with the bases.
Oh, the Area 51 and all that. I suppose you can go there when you're done.
Yeah.
Honestly, I gotta say, those aliens, the gray aliens, don't look like they've had a lot of fun. They look very serious, kind of like a balding, businessman sort of image gets evoked. So I can see them definitely enjoying themselves in Las Vegas.
Yeah, they could use that kind of vacation after 30,000 years of hypersleep.
Nobody thought to pack any movies. I'm stuck here being forced to be conscious for the next 6 months before it's someone else's shift, and there's nothing to watch but the space go by. We're hitting Vegas. Forget New York. We're aiming ourselves for Vegas.
Although if you were an alien and you wanted to land somewhere, I'd say shoot for somewhere near the equator if you're gonna like take off again.
Well, we've got better propulsion systems than we can currently come up with in this situation, right? Because right now,
the aliens have some sort of super takeoff technology
and super, braking technology. Because right now, the problem with space travel for us is that halfway through the trip, we have to start braking.
Yeah. No.
Otherwise, we'll just overshoot our destination.
No, the aliens they have cryogenics, and they freeze themselves. So it doesn't matter how long they take. It's just a matter of because if you just accelerate at a fairly steady and slow rate, eventually you're going near the speed of light, and then you get to halfway to your destination, and you very slowly decelerate. And it takes 50,000 years to get to the next solar system.
That's okay. You signed up for this. You knew the dangers beforehand.
Yeah. You're in stasis the whole time, and somehow you retrieve energy when you arrive to resuscitate all the beings.
Actually, you know what? If I was an alien going to a habited planet, I would land on their moon if they had one. I'd make it really obvious so they could see it. Mm-hmm. But I want to prove to them, it's like, hey, we're landing here. Can you make it up this far? And if they can't, I'm going off to some other planet.
That might be a good,
just to see if they can get their crap together quickly enough that they can bring something up to the moon, because, it's not a lot to be done, at least on our moon.
Yeah, or don't land at all, or actually capture an asteroid and transform it into its raw metals and turn it into a space colony. Or
if you want to be really show them hey, it's not just all about the technology. You capture yourself like a local asteroid or whatever, celestial body.
Yeah.
And then you get that ground up down nice to the fine dust, and then you bombard the planet with it in wonderful shapes and styles and designs to show you're not just all about technology.
Circles.
Yeah, but in the sky, and forget the Aurora Borealis, man. Put this all over the world so that everybody can see the wonderful shades and colors as it dances throughout the night. To prove, no, man, we're not just about the technology. We're full of style and substance here as well. At least that way, because that would, provided make sure you're not going to wind up killing any species as you do this. No radiation or anything's going on.
Yeah.
But it seems a lot less hostile than all of a sudden alien ship is suddenly hovering over one of their largest cities.
I like the thought. I especially like the thought of style and substance because when they talk about SETI and stuff, they talk about the mathematics being the language of the universe, and the first thing you have to do is give them a sequence of prime numbers or something like that, just to show that you're intelligent and you know how to...
Well, at least you can show that it's not random, static noise in the background.
It's here's the prime numbers, and the aliens will be I guess they know what prime numbers are or whatever.
They had a math class project as well. I understand, yes.
But, imagine if you just stop there. It's we're excited that there's aliens. Okay, great, we found them. But they're just into math and stuff.
See, that's why they got to do some nice stuff with sine wave interactions and counter oscillation work, and they'll go oh, I see what you're grooving at here, man. Yeah.
Well, if you do some if you go a little bit more advanced, it's still math, but if you do a little bit of flair and stuff.
It's the Mandelbrot as applied to a sine wave. This is groovy. I can dig it. It's wonderful.
And that's art, right? And that would be really cool if we could share art with other civilizations. Not that math isn't cool, but...
do you read the dinosaur comics? Canadian Ryan North?
Every once in a while, yes. Mm-hmm. Dinosaur Comics is a webcomic series that has the same visual panels of pictures of dinosaurs.
But they say different things on them.
They change the words.
One he was talking about not too far back was it was a hypothetical situation where humanity comes up with the perfect song. And that's it. They only hit perfection once, and it's just the one song. They try playing it to other areas of anything else. It doesn't work for anything but that one song. And so humanity sends it out to the rest of the cosmos, in all directions. Copies of the song, with the golden record sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Not as a way to show what we've managed to accomplish, but like a death cry of a civilization. We've hit perfection once, and nothing else is good enough anymore in any other field. You just go home and forget watching any television. You just play the song over and over again. It's the perfect song. You never get tired of it.
Okay.
And so, it's just this weird like dark yet funny, a situation where it's like, oh, this is all we will ever be able to accomplish. Nothing else will ever be perfect except this one song, which doesn't really do anything. It's just a song. So if it's going to, ruin our civilization, we'll send it out to the rest of the cosmos and ruin it for everything else.
Okay.
Well, so, there's some potential bad sides to sharing culture.
I don't think music actually works that way, but I suppose if it did.
Well, that's the other thing is one of them mentions that does it work that way? Well, we didn't think so, but now that we've had the perfect song, yes, that's how it goes. Yeah, it's perfect. It doesn't get dull, and everyone likes it no matter where they're from. It's perfect. So yeah, you can have a nice little bit of grimness with sharing of culture as well, depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, I have a semi-theory. I don't take it too seriously, but I do have a theory as to why no alien life has ever contacted us. It's because of Howdy Doody, the puppet from the 1940s, just as we were beginning to broadcast television out to the cosmos. It's now out there about 60 light years in either direction, but it's just a little marionette, Howdy Doody. Now imagine if your culture never came up with the concept of a marionette. It would conceivably look like the corpse of a child paraded out for the entertainment of other children. And so the reason why no civilization contacts us is before they actually get to us, they encounter Howdy Doody. And what they perceive is that we use the corpse of a child to entertain other children. And they go, wow, this society is really messed up. Let's not go there. These guys are creeps.
I kind of picture the aliens as being like, what, they're only causing the corpse to dance? Why are they not biting its face off?
Well, there you go. Then in that case, it's like too primitive. It's like either we're too primitive or we're too creepy. Yeah. It's just like everyone else, out in the galactic civilization is like, whoa, just keep away from that planet, man. They're not right.
I like how it's almost like an eHarmony thing. It's like, trying to find your compatible civilization.
We have to find a civilization that won't bomb us and still uses things like marionettes, and it doesn't seem creepy for either of us.
Yeah, it's trying to find the perfect match.
Oh, but then as they get closer to Earth, they're going to have to learn about the internet and some of the weirdness it has on there. So they're going to have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Or they might have a even more depraved internet than ours.
In which case they might stop themselves. Whoa, guys, we can't contact them. They're going to ask about our internet. We've got to clean this place up first. It's like having neighbors over. You got to clean up first. Make sure you hide all the junk and clear all the cobwebs out of that corner no one ever goes into. You got to be careful about this stuff. Play it right. Maybe that's why they haven't contacted us. They're busy cleaning up their act to look so superior in front of us. They're still deciding, do we want to go with regular clothes? Do we want to go with the mecha outfits, or should we all just go with the silver tinfoil we see in all their movies?
I will mention the thing about, that might be true, although our radio bubble is, 60 years out. So that means civilizations 30 light years from here would have had a chance to review it and send a message or send something back. So we're talking about half a dozen stars, less?
Actually, more than we think. They found a few dwarf stars less than 4 light years away.
Okay, so a few hundreds of stars?
Oh.
I guess there might be
I'm about around 100 stars. But here's the thing. We have gotten some signals back. We've gotten some Doctor Who story, episodes we thought completely lost to time, and BBC bad storage archivals. It bounced off of something. We don't know what, but we got the episode back from space.
Sweet.
There's something about 24 points, whatever, light years out that is reflecting things back at us. We don't know what, but it is. And so far we're getting TV signals, the call to start World War II, which almost caused another interaction.
Sure. Yeah.
If we don't, the American military didn't update their codes, they would have gotten a second alert saying Pearl Harbor is being bombed. Start war on the Japanese immediately.
Yeah.
So that could have been potentially nasty. Thank goodness they update every couple decades.
Thank goodness they're like, oh yeah, we're not at war with
This
Japan.
is an old code, isn't it? Let's just double check before we just send off news.
It's an old code, but it checks out. Let them through.
Well, and that's exactly what's happened. It's an old code. like, should we double check with this first? Because I don't think we're actually using this anymore. It says, Pearl Harbor's being bombed. Like, can we verify this has happened a second time?
I like the thought.
Thank God for rational heads, by the way.
With a galactic scale, I mean, can you imagine Star Wars, like, if it was sort of realistic, and, like, a ship could be lost for 1,000 years, and, like, come back, and, like, oh, yeah, here's our code. Well, we've only been gone 10 months. No, at relativistic, it's been 1,000 years. The Empire has been, destroyed, or the Empire rose and fell, or whatever.
Yeah, well, here's the fun thing is that thanks to slow speeds of technology, wars weren't always as clean-cut ended as they would have.
Yeah.
I do believe in the American Civil War, there was a time when after the war happened, there were still some ships attacking like coastal cities because, well, they just never got the message.
Yeah. You just carry out your...
And then they just go, whoops, sorry about that, our bad, we'll just go home now. Oh, wait, we're all one America still. We are home. Yay!
We'll just go home into the city you just bombed.
Tell you what, you guys got rivals like 3 miles down. We'll just park the ship there. Yeah.
I never even thought, like, I bet they must have had a whole program where the Confederate troops would have had to all surrender and go through some sort of processing.
Yeah.
Reintegrated into the... Cause I don't know if they'd be integrated as Confederate units, like back into... I'd have to look up. I'm not a historian. People probably know this.
It's probably one of the better parts to look up about, like, how did it end? Because it doesn't end as clear cut as everyone imagines. It's like, they surrendered here and the proclamation's up, but that news took time to go down the line. You go all the way to the other side of where the Americas are fighting, and that was about 3 months later. They're still fighting the war by the time they get the news.
Yeah. I'd like to know if there was because America and Canada has units that go back, hundreds of years, and specific, like, regiments or divisions or whatever.
Platoons and all that, whatever you want to call them.
that have, like, names and stuff. They're like, this number, XTX, and whatever. That go back to Civil War era or even earlier, I believe. So there may be, like, parts of the U.S. military that trace their history, that were Confederate, like, basically... I don't know how that works, actually.
I think there might be, yeah. Well, it'd be like one of those dissolved, reformed. Is basically just put another sticker over top of the nameplate.
Yeah, I don't know how that works. so sorry to not be the most informative.
Well, here you go. If you're out there looking for, like, you're a good history buff and you want to write something about history, talk about the end of a war. A lot of people talk about the bulk of it, what was going on, who did what. Talk about the end, how it stopped, and how everybody came back to peace. Because it isn't just like, oh, okay, we're no longer soldiers. Go grab a plow, guys. We're farmers again.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. And there's a lot you can learn about converting into peace that way. I think would probably a lesson that could still be utilized today. How do you convert soldiers, especially guerrilla soldiers, into citizens again?
Yeah.
How do you reintegrate to society? There's good things to learn. There's good things to read there.
Yeah.
You're welcome. It's a free book idea for you out there.
It's a book idea. Well, Rambo is kind of... I mean, Rambo goes wrong.
Yeah, Rambo's got some issues behind him.
He comes back from major conflict, and he's trying to reintegrate, but that doesn't really work out.
No. Although, in the end, it's for the best it didn't work out. He saves the day, 4 or 5 times now?
Oh, yeah.
I know they're still doing other movies for Sylvester
Stallone.
Yeah,
later he does, like, special missions, and he's sort of a good guy. Yeah.
But yeah, John Rambo. Yeah, they still aren't doing John Rambo movies anymore, because I know they're still doing Rocky movies. They got another one planned.
Well, the last Rambo movie came out in 3-4 years ago.
So but it is like until they come up with another idea, it's officially end.
I don't think they had plans for the latest one until they were like, oh, let's do another one. Why not?
Well, that's what they keep doing with the Rocky movies. Sylvester Stallone is very open to a new idea, and say what you want about him as an actor. I think the fact that he listens to the concepts for a new idea for a movie involving the characters he has created and loved, I mean, that says a lot about openness of mind. So
sure,
yeah, he's a good man, even if you don't like him as an actor. There you go.
Well, what's he in the Expendables? Is he in that? No?
Yeah, he's in the Expendables. Yeah. He's got Rocky again next year.
Another Rocky?
Yeah, he's training the grandson of Oh, who's it? The guy that he fights the first time, or he helps out with in the third movie?
Yeah, I don't remember all who everyone was.
It all blurs
the only
together.
One I remember is Mr. T.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Clubber Lang, and it wasn't the Russian guy.
Okay.
It was his rival from the first ones that he winds up making friends with after his trainer dies. But yeah, he's training his grandson for the whole thing. So, despite the fact he's not, as young as he used to be, you do get to see some nice boxing stuff, but the action man isn't him, so.
Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about like an old guy trying to act like a young guy movie. It won't be that way.
Okay.
Well, some people, Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, he still tries to act like a young guy in a lot of them. He's not as young a man as he was 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that. He's been doing those action movies for 30 years.
Yeah.
But, long story short, happy Columbus Day.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I guess, what I want to say is it can be Columbus Day and we can recognize that he's a quite flawed character, although he did sort of open the floodgates to the reality that we know of now, which has had a lot of negative stuff, but also, I happen to live in a nice country because... One
of the best parts of the world right now.
Yeah.
So. That said, we probably could have done without the slavery. Actually, I'm just throwing that out there as an idea. You probably could have had a great civilization thrive on the New World without needing to resort to slavery. It would have gone a little slower, wouldn't have been as, immaculately maintained in some areas, but you could have gotten there.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah. In some ways, it's like, well, history is history, and sort of, it's hard to imagine how things would have been different. Maybe we had to have slavery in our history to learn lessons or something. But
without violating universal human rights, we would have never truly realized the value thereof. And so the civil rights movement, the human rights movement, and all that wouldn't have been as powerful a force within society.
Yeah, now that you say it out loud, it doesn't sound as convincing to me.
Well, I do see a kernel of truth in there.
There's something to it, but
if no one ever gets persecuted against, who's going to say, oh yes, these guys, this Million-Man March is a good thing. It's like what did we ever do to you guys, man? It's not like we enslaved you or anything. It's.
But
see, so yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. A world where you don't see the darkness, the depths of humanity. You don't get to see them rise up from it, and so it's not as great.
Yeah, and I guess I don't want to say that to advocate things like slavery now, because obviously slavery is definitely.
Well, okay. Well, you can put it this
now,
way.
Right?
You can definitely put it this way: is that it helps us to highlight why we shouldn't whitewash this stuff away.
Mm-hmm.
Why teams like the Redskins should potentially keep their names.
Yeah,
because
and we should keep Columbus Day.
Well, if they make sure to recognize that as a part.
We don't even have Columbus Day. I don't know why Canada doesn't have Columbus Day.
We should have some sort of thing because we have Thanksgiving Day early and they have Columbus Day. So when they have Thanksgiving, we should have Viking Day.
Yeah.
Because the Vikings landed in what is now Newfoundland, right?
Yeah.
So we could totally have a Viking Day. And then we all, talk like funny Vikings, wear helmets, and then celebrate on the same day as the Americans, and they'll all look north and go, what are those guys doing? So, let's just throw that idea out there.
That's another nice bloody history to celebrate.
But you can also focus on them being the true pinnacle explorers. When the rest of the world said, no, there's nothing over that way, they said, well, we're still going to go check it out just to make sure.
Yeah, I guess we could pick an arbitrary day when they were likely to have landed in the New World.
No, we'll just do it the same day the Americans have their Thanksgiving.
Okay,
that way, when we have Thanksgiving, they have Columbus. When they have Thanksgiving, we have Vikings.
We have Viking Day.
Yeah. Or I suppose we call it, Nordic Landfall Day or something, whatever you want, make it sound, like a real holiday, not just like one of those internet, holidays.
Talk like a Viking Day.
Besides the thing is would it be like the Scottish Vikings you see in the How to Train Your Dragon movie, or would you actually try and speak like a Norwegian? See, that's the thing is it's not an easy accent to pick up.
My apologies to our Scandinavian listeners.
The only real accent we can wind up doing is a bad Swedish chef. Sorry, if Thor spoke more, like Nordic and less like medieval, then maybe it would be a little easier.
Do you have a medieval Thor?
Well, that's the thing, is Thor in the comics, he's like these, thous, and thines when he speaks. And they even change it so that his font isn't the standard font. He's got more of a script type thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, when he speaks, it sounds more, true to someone who is mistaken for a god. Which I think is pretty, awesome in some of the ways. But he doesn't have an accent that would be perceived as appropriate to anybody that has Viking ancestry. So, he sounds more like someone coming out of a Ren festival.
Well, now Thor, he was a Germanic deity, so it could sort of be even England would have had some Thor, and even some parts of France and Germany.
England kind of got rid of the whole concept of Thor, Odin, Woden, and all that sort of stuff when the Vikings started pillaging. They kind of, forced the hand, whoa, we'll stick on this other end of a perspective here and not do that anymore.
Well, yeah, England converted to Christianity, I don't know,
so did the Vikings.
Earlier than the Vikings, but the Vikings in the 900 to 1200 range. And
they converted
England.
very willingly on that, so apparently, too. They embraced it wonderfully.
Yeah, some did.
Don't know why, but they really seem to have picked it up and had a lot of fun with it for utilizing.
Fun with it.
Well, they transcribed books more. They really focused on the stuff, and they looked at their old stories and saw it through a Christian light. The concept of Odin putting himself like a spear on a tree as a parable or like a homologue for Jesus being crucified was examined. And so they were really, okay, we have this history, but we're embracing this religion, and we're going to look at, our old stories under this new perspective. So they clearly seem to enjoy looking at Christianity more than, say, your average dirt farmer in wherever it is the rest of Europe.
Okay, sure.
Well, at least that's what I've seen from the books and the stories, because they wound up writing stuff on stones and all that, so they have really good histories left over compared to, once again, the dirt farmers.
Well, they have the era of the Vikings was also an era when the Roman Empire was sort of, the Western was gone, but they had an Eastern Roman Empire, which still had, it was a center of learning and stuff in the world, so they still had a lot of literature going on and people were writing stuff down, but I guess they also had a lot of chaos and libraries getting burned and,
That is a downside to paper. It burns really well. And the Vikings learned that trait, and that's why they wrote stuff on stones. Now, the stone will degrade over time, but you can still get a decent, imprint of what was, being written there. And that's why we have such wonderful histories of the Vikings, just the Scandinavians in general all enjoyed, making wonderful stones, saying about wonderful stories and Eddas and who did what when.
They had the... Okay, well, okay.
Yeah, I remember reading or watching a TV program about over on the eastern part.
Yeah. They wrote their entire sagas on stone?
Yeah, just wonderful things. Big, wonderful things. They had a lot of time in it, some decent quality stone, and apparently they said, hey, let's class up this wilderness a little bit more. Let's put a story out there.
No, because I've seen pictures of those, the rune stone, the stones with rune, a whole, a lot of writing, but it's not like a whole book.
No, the stuff like Snorri Snurlson. It's his actual name. I'm not making this up. That was his name, Snorri Snurlson.
Okay, yeah.
He did write, in paper and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But he was taking from older stuff that he found on the stones. He was just okay, this one says this.
Oral history too.
Yeah, and then he combines that all up, and that's how he gets the big, wonderful, epics that is the basis for what we perceive as a lot of Viking culture these days. Mind you, he was Christian, so you got to take the whole Viking culture with a grain of salt. As he was seeing it through the Christian perspective as opposed to the pagan perspective himself.
Okay.
So he may have altered things to make it sound a little bit more like what he was thinking. Everyone does it when they wind up doing that sort of thing. It's how the human mind operates. But yes.
Well, enough for an introduction. For talking about the day. So, okay, I think I've got out everything I wanted to say about the day, the date.
I think we put out a few good ideas already, so I'm happy with that.
Signing? No. We'll have. We got some more stuff to talk about.
Yes. What have you been doing this week?
What have I been doing? Well, play Minecraft always.
Shocker.
That's my game of choice. What did I upload? I built a farm, like not a farm, a barn, complete with a fenced-in area for my horses because
very nice.
Minecraft added horses. I don't know how many updates ago, but I guess the last update.
One of the major updates. There's always the little things they're adding.
Yeah. So I had to go to a different land to collect some horses and bring them back and start breeding them. So then I put like a.
So have you considered trying what I did with the going up very high and then coming down again?
Oh.
I told about last week or 2 weeks ago. I have the big tower that takes me all the way up to just about as high as you can go.
Yeah.
And then every time I come back down again, when I go down and I go outside, there's like 2-3 dozen ocelots just standing around everywhere.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I haven't tried that, but I'll have to remember to do that. I have to go to the jungle and.
Well, not just necessarily the jungle. I might want to start up a few maps and just try this in different types of settings.
Yeah.
Does it generate with every type of creature, or is it just like an ocelot type thing?
Well, I'm with yours. Like how you have your world where you're darkening the sky.
Yes, I shall blacken the earth.
But what should happen with that is if you go up as high as you can go, and it's dark directly below you, and you gradually climb the ladder back down, you should get monsters will begin spawning near the surface because that'll be loaded first.
Yes.
So you should get like a big mass of lots of monsters.
That's why I have a lot of torches on the ground right now to prevent
so
just like popping out and suddenly finding like 40 zombies waiting for me.
No, but
I try it, sometime, yeah. But right now I'm testing out how often that happens when I go up to the top and I wind up coming down, and yeah, there's a lot of ocelots there. So it may just be worthwhile to take like 2 or 3 stacks of earth for you, and then just do a jump stack up as high as you can go. Grab yourself a sandwich, come on back, and then just dig your way down again to the base level, and you see what animals are around.
Yeah. Oh, I made I modded in a new item into the game. I think I may have mentioned this on another podcast in the previous one, but I made a blazing ladder. It's a ladder made out of blaze rods, so same recipe as the stick, only replace sticks with blaze rods. And it pushes any creature, including the player, up the ladder without pressing.
So it's like an elevator.
It's like an elevator, but if you do press forward and up to climb the ladder, you actually go twice as fast.
Oh,
so
that
would
be very good for me because it takes me a long time to get up.
So
how do you get down off of the ladder? Does it?
You can't. Well, you can't climb down it. You have to jump.
So you have to, make sure to set yourself
ladder.
a nice little pool next to your ladder, so you've got an up and a down.
Yeah. Well, the same with a normal ladder too. If you jump from a high height and you can catch the ladder, you don't have to press a button or anything. You just have to
catch onto it. You don't take any falling damage.
Land sort of on it. Just enter the square that the ladder is next to.
Yeah.
Basically, then you can avoid falling damage.
So that said, you might want to consider investing in a pool next to this ladder.
Yeah, a pool would do the trick, or just a normal ladder on the other side of the block, or next to it, so that this is the down ladder, this is the up ladder, kind of deal.
Well, that's the thing is, if you're going up with super speed, going down on a regular ladder is going to feel so slow. So you may as well just use gravity.
Yeah, you can just do your pool idea, or you can get what's the other cobwebs. You can jump into cobwebs.
No, it's a little harder. You can't get a bucket full of cobwebs. Can you get a?
Silk touch on shears, and you can get, but you have to, because you can't. I don't think you can enchant shears in the enchanting table. So you have to enchant a book and hope that you get silk touch. That's really hard to get. And then once you get the book, then you can combine the book and shears in an anvil, and then you can have silk touch on shears. And that's
still worthwhile to have, though.
Yeah, well, it's the only way to get. I think the only item you need that for is the cobwebs.
Unless somebody can wind up domesticating, spiders. You domesticate some spiders, then you can milk them, and then bucket full of cobweb, just throw it out.
Like Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm sure that's how he does it. Yeah.
Get web shooters.
Now that might be very interesting to add into the game.
Just what I've been doing is I've been breeding horses basically, and I uploaded a couple of videos of me building the barn and stuff, and putting stuff together. I tried to make it look really nice too. I tried to use a variety of blocks and like some bricks and some other stuff that I.
So I know you can make bales of hay, but can you turn hay into like a mat of hay the same way you can turn blocks of wool into carpet?
No.
Oh.
Although that's a good idea. That might be something to mod in there.
Because that could really make it look like the indoor of like a barn. Then it's just that little carpet of hay over top of everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could just make the floor out of the hay bales, and then all you'd see is the tops of them if they're
Yeah. Okay, that's a nice way of going about it too.
It would look like that. Yeah. So that's a thought too. I put like bales of hay in the basement and stuff. And,
very nice.
And, yeah, it's very rustic.
Well, as the thing about it, it started off as basically, a sandbox game.
Yeah.
And so it's always nice to take the time to play it as a sandbox game and just make something that looks nice in addition to being functional.
Yep.
So,
yep, for sure.
At least that's always been my perspective. It's got to be more than just pure functionality. Otherwise, sure, it's great, but it looks like crud.
Yeah. And I'll admit, like, my building skills, I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to do, like, really good. I've also set some restrictions on myself, like blocks I don't use. Like I think I've mentioned, like certain types of stairs and slabs I won't use. But
I'd never used cobblestone walls myself because for me cobblestone is more of a loose style. You can build a floor out of it and it works for roads, but I don't see it working well for walls.
Well. Yeah, my thought on the walls was like I've been building cobblestone walls since the beginning of the game by putting 2 cobblestone blocks on top of each other. There, cobblestone wall.
So yeah, for me, I try and avoid it as a wall substance. I'll bake it back into regular stone or make brick out of the whole thing. At least that way, in my mind, it looks a little closer to true.
But do you not use the cobblestone blocks as walls at all? Like you don't.
I try and avoid it. Some instances where it's like, oh, it's going to be night soon, I better protect myself. I'll put it up as a temporary thing, but that's just a convenience.
Yeah, it's definitely like doesn't make sense as a ceiling because you're like.
Oh, well. On the other hand, if you could get it really pale, it could wind up looking like one of those stucco ceilings.
Okay. Yeah.
So there you go that way.
Yeah.
But. Yeah, it's a quite nice idea, and I'm going to have to go online and check out how well you've done for creating a barn. I've been in a few in my day, so I may have a high set of standards.
Well, barns, I like it. Yeah, gotta meet those standards for the barn.
Well, otherwise it's just going to look like, oh, this is just like a harbor for horses and all that. And it doesn't look like an actual barn type place.
Okay.
At least from my perspectives, because I have seen some places that have been used to store horses where it's not really a barn. It's just like we just have to put them over here until we figure out a proper place for them. And it doesn't look right. It doesn't look right at all.
Well, mostly the horses are outside in the yard.
Well, that looks right then, definitely.
Yeah. The game doesn't, like, animals don't seem to care if it rains, which I kind of wish that they would. Like, if it rained, they'd go inside. And I don't think it's beyond the. I think it's already in the game for some mods, like some mobs. Skeletons and zombies will seek shelter from the sun.
Well, there's a nice way to make your mark then, is ramp it up so that all animals try, and seek dry out instead of rain.
Yeah, I think that would actually add a nice touch to the game. I think that would work.
It couldn't hurt their AI very much, because sometimes those animals move kind of stupidly, so anything that makes them look like a real animal is definitely going to help.
Oh, and I don't think they're afraid of fire either. I think they'll just walk through fire.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that'll be fixed soon enough.
Yeah, I might have to just go in and play with the code, but it's sort of the thing that I sort of expect the designers to eventually get to.
They're busy people working on some exciting things, so they're working.
Yeah, so I think that covers that's what I've been doing.
Very nice.
And I've been building some roads. I always do that, building roads between villages. So that's I don't know how exciting that is, but it's sort of what I spend my time doing. Well,
it's a nice way to make sure you don't get lost, because let's face it, there is the whole thing about the game where it's like, I'll just explore over that hill, and then you never find your house again. So actually figuring out where you're going, and finding a way to make sure you don't get lost there, not a bad idea.
Yep.
So for myself this week, I've been conducting Dwarven Science in Dwarf Fortress.
Dwarf Fortress.
It occurred to me, is there any coating that prevents the dwarves from actually drinking or consuming poisonous substances? And so I started up a fortress, no mods or anything, downloaded it clean, installed it clean, and played it just pure straight until I got rid of all the extraneous food types and just had plump helmets, the mushrooms, foodstuffs that I was brewing into dwarven wine. And then, I saved the game, log out, and then I mod the file for the standard plants, and I added a syndrome to dwarven wine.
Great. Okay. Sounds ominous.
Most of the symptoms weren't that bad. A little nausea, a little vomiting, some blood coughing. But just to make sure it's noticeable, I added necrosis of the skin. So eventually their skin would wind up just falling off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Then causing the entire body to rot.
Sounds like something dwarven wine would do.
Well, that's the thing is, this was just a test to see is there coating in there.
Yeah.
The programmer Toady, he's very good at programming in little things he never mentions to anyone else.
Yeah, sure.
And so it suddenly occurred to me, he seems like the kind of guy that would state that a dwarf would know whether or not this thing he's about to consume is poisonous. If it is poisonous, he does not consume it. And so I wanted to test that. And I have the little netbook open right now, and there's some very big flashing dwarves and a lot of miasma, blood, and vomit all over my tiny fortress. Don't worry, I saved the game before I modded the file, and so I'll reload it back up again for future testing and purposes.
Okay.
So what I may wind up doing is just utilizing a thing whereby I can examine syndromes and how they work through testing out dwarven liquors.
Okay.
And so that way I'll gain a better understanding of it. And later on tonight I'll go over to the Dwarf Fortress forums, post up what I have learned about this, and I shall ask the various denizens of the forums, what can we do with this now that we know there is nothing preventing the consumption of poisons? And if it's not there for the dwarves, the chance that it's there for any other species is incredibly slim.
Yeah, okay.
So, what can we do with this? How can we have fun with this?
Well, so you can make all kinds of poisons then, in theory, right?
Well, that, and you can add, there's some new stuff, interactions, whereby you can change a creature in, various, it was made for werewolf transformations, but you could do it so that any time they drink dwarven wine, they go into a frenzy. Or they could wind up, you could make it so that one very hard to make wine, let's see, was it whip wine? From the very good whip of vine that only grows in very good biomes would heal a creature. It would, it basically cause them to revert to something and then regenerate, and that's the only way you can heal nerve damage in the game at this point.
I'm just amazed that the game even has something like nerve damage, as a thing.
Well, that makes combat that much more lethal. Sure, it's only one cut, but you know what? There's no more nerves in that hand anymore, so your dwarf now has only one working hand. And there are actual stories about dwarves that get hurt on both arms, have their spine severed, and so they wind up just slowly kind of crawling themselves into battle with a sword clenched in between their teeth. They're still ready and willing to fight because they were told to go to this area and fight. How effective they are is another story entirely. They become good dodgers really quickly, or they die. But it's a nice touch, and it really does add to the fact that you want good trap defenses in this place. You don't want your dwarves to just go out and meet every fight head on because you can heal up anything with bandages. No, there can be some very nasty nerve damage, and you could really hurt yourself. If not, some goblin with a crossbow gets in a lucky shot and blows your brains out. Because that'll happen. Well,
that's cool. I like that this game has such a level of granularity, sort of like, other games it's just, hit points. You go down, you go up.
There are hit points in the game, but that's for creatures that would otherwise be indestructible. The Bronze Colossus, having no nerves, no blood, and being made out of bronze, very hard to chop any body part off of. Or the undead. Zombies, skeletons, and the like being... before that was added in, notoriously difficult to kill because they wouldn't bleed to death, and so you couldn't shove their brains out and kill them. They didn't have a nerve center for thought.
Yeah.
So you'd have to wind up chopping them into small enough bits that, the bits can't do any damage to anyone, and then you gather the bits up and smash them under a bridge or something.
Okay. Wait, under a bridge? Like a drawbridge?
Yeah, you can have bridges that go up and down. It's called the Dwarven Atom Smasher because it will destroy pretty much anything, unless the creature is like over a certain size thing, in which case it breaks the bridge. It's just too big to get crushed by a bridge. But most garbage will just get crushed into nothingness.
Okay.
It's a nice way to get rid of vermin remains, corpses, and clothes that are too tattered you don't want to sell. Just get rid of it and increase my frames per second.
Oh, I like the logic. Oh, we have some stuff to get rid of? Well, we'll crush it into the drawbridge.
Well, I mean, if you dig far enough deep, you can just drop it into a magma thing and just have it burn away into nothingness.
That makes more sense logically.
I don't always want to dig all the far down and then draw magma up to the surface just to get rid of a bunch of old clothes. I'll just smash it underneath the drawbridge.
Digging to magma. In real life, digging to magma is a lot harder than.
And it's not easy in Dwarf Fortress either. There's a lot of. You're gonna have to break through 3 levels of caverns likely to get down to the magma seas. You're gonna have to deal with all the creatures that they wind up coming into the area because they're now open. And once the caverns are exposed, creatures will come in there, and then you got to build a way to move pump stacks to bring all this magma up to the top. I find it's a lot easier just to crush them underneath a drawbridge instead of letting them slowly rot or decompose. It saves me time, keeps my fortress looking nice.
Okay. Magic drawbridge, okay, yeah.
It's one of the weird parts about Dwarf Fortress that doesn't mimic reality.
No, every video game has those.
That's it. I mean, it's not too hard to create a mod whereby you can take any item of clothing, burn it, and create some ash out of the thing, and then just utilize ash for making better glass, doing some work with furnaces and kilns, whatever.
I see. Yeah.
Or just selling it to the elves because you hate them so much. I'm not going to sell you anything real, just ash. Just ash for you. That's all I shall sell you.
Well, if they buy it, presumably they want it, right?
Yeah. Doesn't mean it has to be useful. You can always be, antagonistic towards them despite being allies.
Okay, yeah.
Which is still a lot friendlier than a number of people treat the elves in the game.
Well, I wanted to ask, how deep can you dig in Dwarf Fortress?
Depending on where you start, it's usually a few hundred vertical levels.
A few hundred.
If you start up on a mountain,
300?
Well, that's the thing is you can start up on the mountain and you can wind up at vertical level 150 and then dig down to negative 150.
Okay.
Mountains
are those meters or
they're
tens of meters?
they're just blocks, so maybe a 3 by 3 by 3 meter, give or take.
Okay.
So, and that gets you, but that doesn't always get you down to the magma sea to the very bottom. Occasionally, you'll wind up breaching into hell, and then you have another problem entirely to deal with. Oh, sorry, there was a spoiler there. Whatever.
Oh, that's not common knowledge.
It's usually kept hidden in the forums. They refer to the rare mineral you find down there as cotton candy. And the things you find down in the circus are a bunch of clowns. So it's used as code terminology, but...
Are we going to edit all this out, or...
Nah.
Okay.
Leave it all in. I mean, you're going to figure it out soon enough, because let's face it, if you've watched any of the Lord of the Rings stuff, you're going to try to dig too deep.
That's what dwarves always do. So are there Balrogs or something like that, or is that another spoiler?
There's a mod I have where somebody created a Balrog, and that was actually had layers of umbral darkness about them. But some of the stuff that comes out of there, some of the clowns that come out of the circus, you wish they were just Balrogs.
Okay.
They'll do stuff they're huge. They will knock your dwarf 30 squares back if they hit, man. And your dwarf will hit something and then explode into a bunch of chunky bits. They have some real force behind them and not some puny whip and a roar. So Balrogs, if you're lucky.
Very good.
But yes,
covered your group then?
Yes, I've conducted successful dwarven science this week.
You've conducted it.
That was my big part of fiction for this week.
Yeah.
Although I have noted the interesting story this week as I was going about.
Okay.
Those of you who follow the news know about the dread Pirate Roberts getting busted by the FBI. And he was a man who ran a site that would buy and sell anything. Legality be damned.
Right.
And so, yeah, he was not following proper trading laws for doing this. It's not like Craigslist at all. I mean, no one was even trying to keep things legal. And, yeah, he had put out a hit on a person. He had contracted an assassin to do work. So, yeah, you can buy and sell assassinations on this part of the Internet.
Okay.
It was a grim, dark part. And so I find two interesting tangents coming out of this. Is one, because he utilized bitcoins, the currency. Look up bitcoins. It's a little complex to just brush over here.
Yeah, or don't look it up. Just don't worry about it. Cause
Yeah, go hit Wikipedia, and have some fun. It's a good currency to learn about, but whether or not the FBI will be able to seize the assets, these proceeds from crime, as well as they can, stop a bank account
so
from
he was
the mafia.
collecting his fee through Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or
He was
in
getting
the form of Bitcoins, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, he was getting bitcoins for it instead of wired transactions. And so Bitcoin is very secure. It prides itself on being secure. That's their big thing. It's cyber only, and it's security up the wazoo.
Yeah.
So it seems like the FBI is going to have their hands rather busy in an attempt to try and steal his bitcoins away.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to take them, and I guess
it's the proceeds of crime stuff. You seize it the same way you'd seize laundered money, drug money, cars, houses, and all that.
But I would think with something like Bitcoin, I would think it would be just possible just to say, okay, you're not allowed to access your Bitcoin account anymore, sort of.
What's the thing is, it's a new form of currency that doesn't have very good parallels to the currency you and I use on a daily basis.
Okay.
And so there's some quirks about it, and I found that just interesting on a technical perspective. Like, what if you had something that couldn't be taken away from you? It would truly be yours in a much more fundamental sense.
I don't know. That's kind of appealing in a libertarian way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, just from a security aspect, it's like, you mean they can't steal it from me? It can't be robbed from me? The only way I can not have it is by giving it away? It seems so much more right as what money was intended to be. It's like hit the primal essence of monetary funds. And totally just, reinvented it.
Well, I mean...
So, I heard, Bitcoins before, but, it never struck me that this unstealable currency. It's, tantalizing now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have social, what do you even call it? Social restrictions on what we can do with the money that we have in real life, sort of for reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, good or bad reasons. They're sort of societies like, well, no, you can't use even if you have this money, you can't use it to
put a hit out on somebody,
buy illegal things, or to fund certain political. You can't spend more than a certain amount on political.
Is the Irish militia thing still around? Because I know there was a lot of people that wound up getting in trouble donating to a cause that was really just a front for the Irish Libertarian.
The IRA?
Yeah, the IRA.
Republican, or Irish Republican Army? I think that's right.
The Ireland for Irish organizations.
From what I don't follow it, but from what I remember is that organization went legit, and they have members of parliament or whatever the Irish parliament is called. I can't remember.
That's kind of a scary thought, because they were doing a lot of bombings at one point in the history there.
Yeah, but I think the organization itself decided to renounce violence. There still are individuals and
but they're not
offshoots.
seen as part of the official party anymore. They're the radicals.
Yeah, there's the occasional offshoots that still do bad things, and whether it's riots or bomb threats. I'm not sure. I don't remember when the last bombing was, but it's probably not. It's within living memory.
Well, it's definitely calmed down compared to what it was even 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean they've had sort of storms and lulls and stuff, and basically they're in a lull. But yeah, I guess right now you could fund them, and I think it's fine.
But there was a time there was people getting into trouble, because they were donating to one fund, and it was really just like a sock puppet for the militia group.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are groups. I don't know if there's any Irish that I can think of. Irish groups.
Well, there's places all around the world that
But
you can donate to that are effectively a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Heck, according to some people, the PETA is got a terrorist ties, so donating to them is like donating to terrorists. I don't buy the argument fully myself, but there is a connection.
Well, there's connections on one hand, and yes, there's a question of morality. And
how solid those connections are probably a debate for more learned people in a more legally secure podcast than ours.
Well, but there are legally there's a list of organizations. I think most countries keep a list of terrorist organizations who you're not allowed to give money or deal with.
So yeah, you're prevented from using your money as you see fit all the time.
But yeah, sometimes the people who go on that list, or the organizations that go on that list, might be on there for various political reasons, or somebody might not get on the list because they're politically connected in some way. Hopefully, I mean, Canada is relatively not corrupt compared to a lot of countries in the world, so
or at least we're a little bit more subtle about it.
Maybe, so hopefully most of the people on our terrorist watch or terrorist organization list actually are terrorists for the most part. There might be a few overlaps or missing groups, but yeah, I don't know.
The spy groups tend to do what they can to make sure that list stays current.
I hope so. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I hope
see, that's the thing is, I mean, this website was open for a while, and it only got recently taken down.
Oh, so, yeah, this black pirate guy with the...
No, the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Okay, Dread Pirate Roberts.
That's what he went by. I can't remember his actual name.
Yeah. But
that's what he went as. So, yeah, he has this currency that the FBI is going to have a much harder time than usual to remove from him.
Okay.
Proceeds of crime and all that. But the other bit that caught my attention was the concept of the blackest of black markets, where you can, buy and sell anything.
Okay, so this works for your fictional settings, especially near future, apocalyptic.
Well, that doesn't necessarily need to be near futuristic. The concept that there is a market where you can buy this, not just I know a guy, you go to the bar, you talk, you ask for this person, he'll show you the guy over in the corner, you talk with him, he'll do the dirty deeds that need to get done.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost cheap, but it'll get done. Instead of that being just that way, there's a black market where you can just shop around for killers, thugs, thieves, and other ne'er-do-wells of all stripes.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you read in the news. I think I remember reading about somebody who tried to hire a hitman that turned out to be a cop.
That happens nicely frequently.
Yeah.
I'm very happy every time I read that story.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit depressing, the fact that people actually feel the need to want to kill their spouses or whatever.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, figure it this way, is the Menendez brothers down in America tried to kill their parents themselves, and they did such a poor job of it. Everyone's thinking, well, I really want this person out of my life, but I don't think I'm professional enough to get it done properly.
I just don't want them to suffer.
I want this to be quick, I want it to be efficient, and I don't want to be tied to it. So, let's make sure this happens professionally, not make this some rank amateur job.
I guess, I mean, if it works and it goes off correctly, I guess we never hear about it because it...
And that's always the scary thing.
Yeah.
Is every time you look at, died of accidental death, natural causes, eh? Not all the time.
Yeah.
But there's the concept as a wonderful scene or a location or an aspect within your story, be it a game, be it a novel, an actual black market to go to when you can't get it done legally. And I think that's because, you hear about that occasionally. But it's just not a thing the same way you encountered. Shadowrun is the only game I know of that has it as a defined thing. If you want it done illegally without problems, it's going to cost you extra. There's a street legality index for the stuff. If you get caught with the possession of illegal items, here's what they qualify for the criminal code. And so it's all in there. Everything else, I mean, is there anything on rules for what you can and can't have legally in Dungeons and Dragons? What's the legality of a wand of fireball? That's a very dangerous item.
It depends on the city you're in, because often in D&D it's sort of the feudal society, so it's whoever the local lord is. He basically sets those sort of rules.
But, it occurs to me as one of these situations where it's just never really mentioned in any of the books. It's like, hey, you may want to consider, when you're coming up with a civilization, what is their legality code for magics? Is all necromancy illegal? Do you require a permit to utilize magic?
I believe I've seen that in various world-building books, but those are books that you sort of have to buy on the side. Like, it's not in the main book.
Yeah.
But there might be, the DMG might have one little, paragraph on legality in your world. But there's really not that much.
Everything else kind of assumes a might makes right. If you have a wand of fireballs, you're allowed to have a wand of fireballs. Why? Because if anyone disagrees, fireball!
Might makes right. That's pretty much how it goes in D&D.
And so the concept of where there's a legal or an illegal aspect to the whole thing, where it's like, I want to buy a wand of fireballs. You can't get that here. Those things are illegal. You'll never get the permits. So you go to the black market and you find yourself an illegal wand of fireballs. Mm-hmm. And that can make for a very entertaining, a night session. Like what do you bring to the black market? Of Skullport underneath Waterdeep. What do you not bring? How much extra gold do you want to bring with you? How much are you? Do you want to consider bribes in here? Do you want to consider that in the price? 'Cause I don't want to go back up and have to go get more money again.
Who are we asking?
It's just something,
character sort of.
It's just something to consider, especially for in character. What do you bring to the black market?
Yeah, you better.
Not the paladin, I'll say that.
Roll a knowledge local check to know how much you have to bribe.
Whether or not there is bribes being done, or do you have to worry a lot about cutthroats and cut purses? Does everyone have to stick together like back to back to make sure you don't wind up with a dozen knives in your shoulder blades all of a sudden?
And if you roll a 1 on your knowledge local, it's no, nobody does bribes. Bribes are frowned upon here.
It's really on the barter honesty system. It's the whole honor amongst thieves. The concept of bribing is considered very rude. If anyone's trying it, they're clearly trying to put one over on you, and give them a good punch to the jaw to show them you mean business.
Yeah, and just take things they'll know you'll pay.
The joys of Critical One.
And that's how Kender got started.
Now, Kender, it's more of an innocence thing. They'll be more likely to accidentally steal brightly colored feathers than a bar of gold. Gold is uninteresting in a bar form, but those shiny feathers, those are shiny, and you can twirl them around, and it'd be great off the back of your weapon or in your hair. So, provided you make sure you have the right items around, they won't steal the expensive stuff, just the really pretty stuff.
What would happen if you were a Kender and you put lots of skill points into knowledge local, gather information, diplomacy, so that what's socially unacceptable to do?
Yeah.
You just do it or you get away with it.
Well, that's the thing.
It's
effectively like a racial kleptomania.
Yeah.
It's wrong, but at the same time, you don't have the same sense of personal possession. It's just not a part of your psyche the same way it is for humanity or dwarfanity or
But
elvanity.
if you have the ranks in the skill, knowledge local or negotiation or whatever, you know what the social conventions are.
Yes.
And you know that you're breaking them. So I guess
that's the thing is most Kender in the stories don't even realize that they just toss the stuff into their pocket when something else catches their attention.
Yeah, and that makes sense for your standard Kender who doesn't have ranks in the...
No, that's the thing. It's just they don't even think of it the same way. It's they'll just it'd be like almost like with an infant. I'm grabbing this because I want to look at it. Yeah. And then I just toss it down. I know the parents keep chastising me about it. I want to just take a look at it right now. Oh, what else has caught my eye? And then they just throw it down on the ground.
So it's a lack of concentration. But that's a skill too, concentration.
Yeah. Well, there's a thing.
Skill points in concentration, knowledge local, diplomacy.
Well, I don't think you need diplomacy to know it. Diplomacy will help you get out of trouble afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
But it's just they don't even realize that they're putting the stuff in their pouches and all that. It's just like a reflex thing. It's okay. Now I'm focusing on that. Keep my hands, open.
So it's a reflex save.
Effectively, you could make
you could make a will save.
You could make it either a will save or a reflex save, just to realize whether or not you're putting it into your pockets or your pouches.
Yeah, this is what I'm getting at. I'm wondering if you could build a Kender character that wasn't. Who would want to do that, obviously? But you could build a Kender character that wasn't a kleptomaniac by really focusing on these skills, like,
Well, you just, I don't think you even need it to necessarily be skills. You can just make that part of your character. You might need the checks, for something that's of importance, but otherwise,
Well, I don't know, like, as a DM, would you, if you had a Kender in your party, would you require that if they weren't being a kleptomaniac, would you say, like, hey, buddy, listen, you're a Kender, you're supposed to be stealing stuff?
I wouldn't say it. In fact, I've always considered it to be like, if it's like a non-important thing, like a healing potion or that, whenever someone goes to get like a mundane item, there's a 25% chance the Kender has it instead.
Okay.
You want the ink and quill, you want your, the book here like this and all that. No, 25% chance Kender has it. It's in one of his pockets. If you can't find it in yours, just ask him.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's all right.
And because
the
there are
Kender
some
just has it. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is some people play it like the Kender. It's like, okay, I'll make checks all the time to try and pickpocket and all this sort of stuff. And if I get caught, it's like, oh, I don't even realize it. I'm just gonna say we're gonna cut out this bad gaming part of it because it can be really disruptive.
Yeah.
And just say if it's a mundane item of like no like high end value or anything like that, 25% chance Kender has it.
Okay. On the same lines, too, would you just say, like, the characters spend a day in the market or whatever, and instead of just rolling for the Kender or, like, having him roleplay, what do you call it, sleight of hand or pickpocket, you just say, no, at the end of the day, you find you have an extra 25 gold in your purse. You don't know how it got there.
What's the thing is with Kender, gold, in the Dragonlance setting, gold's not really worth much. It's steel pieces there, but the coins aren't really all that. I think they might find themselves with like a half dozen eggs, like a couple things of beads, and some other like tchotchkes or knickknacks.
Okay. And in a Kender society, like what happened? Like imagine you were in a Kender market, like a Kender town.
Yeah, they have Kender cities.
And there's a market, and you walk through there. Like, do you just say you're a human and you walk through the market and you come out the other end, you just have random items, like nothing. Well,
if you're human, you probably have a few less items.
Yeah, but imagine you might have a couple extra. Like, I don't even know what this is.
No, with the Kender, it's
they don't ever give back.
No, their society tends to be more of a mix between anarchy and omnigarchy, where there's no official ruler. Yeah, everyone's in control, and everyone just please don't do this. Okay, good enough. So aside from things like locked doors, it's no real head of state.
So, but they don't get mad though if somebody steals from them.
No, not unless it's something that has like personal value, like my husband gave me that rock feather. It probably wouldn't be a rock feather, just a story. Yeah, unless it has personal value, they wouldn't have that as a thing. It's like, oh, I don't know where it is. I must have put it down somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's just not the same to them.
Okay.
That said, I do imagine having eggs in the market would be rather harsh for any Kender trying to sell, because they lose half their product.
Yeah. Well, in a Kender market, like, is that I'm wondering if that might not even be a thing. Like, do Kender just... do they even have a market? Do they even buy and sell? Or?
Well, yeah. People need stuff. You need to buy the bread, the milk, this and that. There's got to be farmers out there to get it from.
But they don't just bring it in, like, it's not like communistic where they just bring them.
It is much more communistic.
And everybody takes as much bread as they need, sort of.
I also think it's much more towards communistic, true communistic, than other fantasy races. That said, no, there is still a thing like you got to make sure to make ends meet. So, if it's like, like something happened, like farmer whatever lost half of, his milk today, like what happened there, like the bottles went all missing. And so they might donate, it's like a charity sort of thing, and it turns out they wound up taking from it, in the first place. So it balances out on a larger scale.
I suppose, yeah, if you're a Kender and you bring all your goods to market, you don't, like, this scenario doesn't happen. You don't, like, leave the market with nothing, because at the same time as people are stealing all your stuff, you're stealing whatever you can get your hands on. So you leave the market.
It's not like true thievery. It's more of like the interesting thing. So you'd leave with extra stuff, but it wouldn't be valuable things necessarily. Gems look valuable and they're pretty, so they're more likely to be stolen than, like as I said before, like an ingot of gold. Mm-hmm. it's just like a bar of gold. It's not really enticing for them. So despite being very valuable, it's just not as like marbles would be much more interesting. You get wonderful colored marbles. That's much more likely to get stolen.
Okay. Well, I imagine like in a food market or whatever, there's probably not a lot of riches flowing around.
No, in that case,
probably more barter systems in if anything.
A little bit more barter system, but because
coins or marbles.
Well, because stuff like bread and milk and I say chicken eggs, and fancy like other species eggs might wind up getting disappeared.
Giant centipede eggs.
Yeah, that sort of stuff would most likely wind up disappearing piece by piece. Yeah. But the more mundane items, being mundane and not worth of a lot of attention, would be much less likely to get stolen because they're there to pick that stuff up and then they pay for it and go.
You don't think it's more like, I don't know, like you're Mr. Kender, the cheese merchant, and you bring a wheelbarrow full of cheese. You set it up in a stall, and then you just wander off to the rest of the market and just take everything you need. And when you come back to your wheelbarrow, it's empty, and you put the stuff that you picked up.
No, because it's much more innocent than that. And so unless somebody's like, you got your cheese shaped, intriguingly, it's just not going to catch the Kender attention. They're not going to look at it for a second and then find something else to catch their eye as they put it in their pocket.
I don't know, because if there was just cheese out that like you're allowed to take, sort of like the social convention is, cheese you can eat. I would just, I'd pig out at the stall. I'd be like, oh, cheese, so good. I love cheese.
Well, there you go. But, that is, like taking advantage of the situation. That's not the Kender style. I mean, there are Kender thieves, of course, who steal that stuff on purpose. But by and large, most of them don't do that. It's like it's more of like kleptomania, where they take things that catch their eye, as opposed to things that have like legitimate value to them.
So the Kender market probably.
And a lot of people don't get their head around it. So when they play Kender, they are trying to steal. I steal the platinum bar. It's like, why did that catch your eye? It's like, because it's valuable. And it's like, no, that's not proper for thief kleptomania.
So you should make something up about the inscription on it, or it had a little interesting crack that I liked, or something like that.
There was some stuff written on the back, like 99.99 pure. I was going to ask what that meant, but then so-and-so mentioned something, and then I wanted to follow up what was going on there because I want to be part of the plot, too.
There we go.
I just slipped it into my pocket. Sorry about that. Here, I'll give it back. If you get caught. Mm-hmm. That sort of thing, you play it that way. But that's one of the things with Kender, why so many people hate them playing them in a game, is because not everybody gets it. And they do. You almost have to read like a book or two with them in there to get like their pace and their timing with it.
Okay, yeah, I still don't entirely get it, but yeah, I sort of, I guess.
Imagine them being like a 3-year-old child. Is a 3-year-old child likely to steal cheese, feathers, or marbles?
If they're hungry, cheese. Or depending on the type of cheese, because sometimes kids don't have a taste for. They like
the real good cheeses, the pungent cheeses, the potent stuff.
Yeah, they like
the Havartis with jalapeno in there.
Yeah, kids won't. They'd go with the marbles sooner than that.
So with a kid, you imagine them, like just this looks interesting. They pick it up, and then at that point, you just imagine they put it in their pocket as they go off to do something else.
Yeah.
And so that is a much better way of looking at it, as opposed to I steal the valuable stuff and everything that's not buttoned down.
Okay, so it's almost unconscious.
Although, which is not to say you can't utilize all Kenders are horrible thieves as a nice stereotype against them, and how the rest of the world perceives them. Like, there's a bunch of Kender walking down the road. We got to get offside. If we walk down by them, we'll lose our armor in 15 seconds. And it's like, the horrible stereotypes. So you can utilize that as what the other races perceive them as.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. But now that we've talked about thievery, I think we can seg nicely into the topic.
Oh, yeah, our main topic. Yeah.
Spending time in jail.
Well, we don't have a lot of time to cover the other main topic, I guess.
Okay, well, it's just...
quickly,
in that case, a nice end-point topic for us.
Okay, yeah, so if you steal something, you go to jail. Go to prison.
Ostensibly, within almost any setting, you steal or do most of the activities that happens in an adventure or being illegal to some, or at least if not, immoral in some sense, and you wind up in the proverbial slammer.
Yeah, which in a medieval setting is basically a hole in the ground, or a really ramshackle building, sort of.
Well, not necessarily.
No
I mean, you could have some fun, riffing off of the real world history. If you're a bad enough thief, you get deported to the island of thieves, Australia. But
and then you could have Aussie adventures.
Oi, oi, oi! Yeah, no. You could have a lot of fun that way. In the land of of misfits, or you set it in a more traditional thing. I mean, heck, in a high magic sort of thing, you could even have it be like some sort of prison demi-plane.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we've determined we don't want you part of society, so we're going to dump you down here, and you're not getting out.
Well, I guess it's sort of like there aren't so much guards as it's just they just lock you in, and it's like sort of they.
Once you're on the inside, it's its own society. It's its own laws going in. The law of the ruthless. Arr.
Yeah.
And I think that would make for an excellent adventure. I mean, it's a nice way to set up for something like a D&D based thing. Say, okay, you guys are all going to be in like a prison world, or at least a prison city. Mm-hmm. And so plan your characters accordingly.
Your entire adventure could happen.
It starts there. It starts as your first day, in jail.
Because there are adventures where you start in prison and you break out and you get all your items back. But imagine if that never happened. Like it's
like, okay, you're going to start off with nothing for possessions aside from a set of clothes, nothing fancy, of course, and anything you can fit up one bodily orifice.
Oh boy, I guess that had to come up with prison, though.
It's interesting way of making sure they don't carry 10-foot poles around or have way too much for encumbrance, and I think
it's a telescoping pole.
Well, if you want to do it that way, yeah. But you could also I think that you could do a lot of fun because I mean you have the whole some of those like Oriental things where the people wind up hiding the stuff in their hair, and it's like very fine weapons. It's just hidden, like slightly piercing in their scalp, and it's hidden beneath their hair.
Yeah.
So provided the prisoners don't get like shaved bald because they're getting entered into prison.
Well, which could happen. Yeah.
Which could happen. I mean, but if you state that out, I think it makes for a very wonderful adventure scenario. If not an entire campaign around that, trying to escape the prison city. There's a city wall, but it faces the other way. It prevents you from escaping.
I like that. Yeah.
And so you can have like a wonderful series of adventures in this whole ruthless. Okay, you know what? There might be some lawful organizations in there, but by and large, you're going to be in a chaotic society, and you may have to be prepared to knife somebody in the throat if you want to get the bread that gets tossed over the wall in the morning.
Yeah,
so
that's great. I like that. I like the idea. I'd like to play a game like that.
And here's the thing. I mean, there's different ways you could work on that sort of thing too. Would you want to try and play it like, okay, the purpose of our group is to try and like dig a tunnel and escape out, and we broke out of the prison city, or do you want to work it where I'm going to become the biggest force in there? I'm going to rule in hell.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, the characters could kind of. If it was sort of a sandbox setting, it'd be like, you're in a prison, but the prison is a sandbox, so you can,
Well, I mean, you could, as the DM, you could write up like some potential ideas, because not everybody comes up with like, what am I going to do in a sandbox setting? Like initially, you can say, here's some fun goals you might want to consider pursuing. You could say like, I've got like a nemesis in here. I committed the crime to get caught, so I could get tossed in just to get my revenge. Mm-hmm. Because let's face it, that is a nice theme, in prison movies. And then you've got the whole, I'm going to become the biggest bad in there. I'm going to get out of here. You could go a lot of different ways and just put up a few ideas for the players and see which ones they want to work out with their characters.
And now, I guess party dynamics would be interesting because people hook up in prison who wouldn't normally, hook up, I just mean like join a party and that. But
security group. I think the best term for it.
Yeah, in the real world, these people would never cross paths, would never join forces, and yet in prison they do, and they work together really well. And
they wind up staying friends outside of it in some cases too, when they ostensibly reform and go free.
They can, and that can be the basis for future adventures, or they can just find out, well, no, now that we're out, we just have nothing in common.
And that's a very interesting thing too. It's just like, okay, you guys are out, you've You've found the true perpetrators of the crime you were committed for. They've admitted to it, and now you're freed by by royal decree. What do you do now? It's like, well, we really don't have a lot in common. We just go our separate ways.
Yeah.
And I think it makes for an interesting, especially if you're going to write like a novel based on something like that. It adds for a nice bittersweet ending. Like, yes, we're free, but now there's nothing keeping us together anymore, and we just float apart.
Yeah.
So if you want, I think it would make for a very interesting novel, maybe a short story if you want to explore the setting. Just sit yourself down in front of a computer and start typing this out in your head. If you want to do it in a modern setting, futuristic setting, you want to do it medieval setting.
Yeah.
You could do all sorts of fun.
And like sometimes with modern like stories, like heist stories or something, it's like, no, we're getting the gang back together. It's like because the gang sort of went their separate ways.
Oh, yes.
Oh, we're getting them all back together.
Well, that's when you get everybody back together for a second, campaign arc.
That's the next thing.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Not bad. But yes, I think it's just like a subgenre. I didn't even put anything, I think, very close to that in my table of genres we had a few iterations back.
Yeah.
What would be the closest genre for that sort of thing? Would it be like the Wild West, where the codes of honor are personal and otherwise it's a lawless society? How would you what's the closest equivalency?
Yeah,
in
it is lawless, but it's different from the Wild West in that there's a lot of space in the Wild West. And in a prison, it's lawless, but they're all crammed together. So it's very...
To add the pressure and the tenseness to it.
It might be more like the urban...
Well, yeah, there's a goal for yourself. What I'm going to do in the prison place is just make sure everyone stays far enough away from me. I get a little peace and quiet. I'm going to play the crazy psycho that just keeps stabbing everybody that gets too close.
Yeah.
Not a bad role for a rogue, I suppose. Chaotic neutral at best.
Yeah.
Just a little peace and quiet. That's it.
Make it peace and quiet.
My own space to relax. Okay, adventure's over. I win. But yeah, it's like a genre that you don't even see a lot of. There's the occasional movie, Let's All Go to Prison. There's the TV series Prison Break, which didn't actually stay in the prison for its entire run. Mm-hmm. There was the On the Lam thing, which might be a nice secondary thing. If you get out of the prison but not lawfully, the whole run from the cops sort of thing. Be the hunted instead of the hunter. Very nice.
Yeah, well, you might have to move the story outside the prison after some point because it might get old, but I don't know. Imagine you could have an entire adventure in the prison, but yeah, you could also break out, and that would be a new adventure. So yeah, it's all good.
But the closest equivalency I can see it is to like a dungeon adventure where you're not ever allowed to leave the dungeon.
Yeah. Well, imagine the prison has a dungeon is a prison of a sort. So imagine it just has deeper and deeper levels, and you can just.
Well, that's the thing is
you do your dungeon adventure under a prison.
Oh, that could be very interesting.
And then your
Why did they choose this site for the dungeon city? Well, because everyone who used to live there is dead and killed from this horrible thing that now lives under the ground. We put up a defensive perimeter, and then anybody we don't like, we just toss on in. They've managed to survive for some reason. We won't let them out, though. And that's how it formed.
Yeah, and then you go in there, and it turns out, they have their own little structure, sort of hierarchy of, a little chaotic. Sometimes the leader
Well, especially when, there's,
and
fights, it's like the dwarven gang versus the elven gang, and the gang warfare for turf.
Yeah.
Stay out of our groves. We need it for the charcoal.
Imagine like a tiny little elven grove, like with one tree, and then, they have the yard or something, and they have one tree.
Well, that's where, the elves live in this prison thing, is they've got the yard. It's the prison equivalent of, like, Central Park in this prison city.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, you could have a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Little tufts, a flower, like a dandelion.
No, I'm thinking, like, thorn stuff, because, these are prison elves, man. They're not raising, like, frou-frou flowers. They're raising some of the nasty stuff. They got bramble bushes. It's like a separate wall, a hedge wall, 15 feet high of brambles. Keep out of our elfin land.
Oh, man, this is kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. And it forces you to think about the groups differently. Like, what would the dwarves be doing in this prison city. They don't have access to a lot of materials. Would they be considered like a neutral group? Like you need something built. They're the guys you contract in. They're the builders. Or would they just be a bunch of like violent little like half-sized psychopaths that just really like like capping like breaking kneecaps, man?
Yeah, well, we have some other half-sized races that we could probably throw at, like halflings and gnomes.
I think prison gnomes could be pretty bad, but they seem like the kind that to be like the tattoo artist, like tattooing the big guy. He's just like the background character.
Okay, yeah.
Well, they're big on their art, and I can see that's how they would express it in the prison setting. So I think we segged nicely, and there's just a nice idea for an adventure for anyone out there who's thinking about something a little different. It would definitely work interestingly for Shadowrun campaign. Okay, you guys are all Shadowrunners, but you've been caught. You're in jail now.
Yeah,
and so
sort of like a well, it depends, but maybe a loose jail with no guards. It's just you can't get out.
Yeah, it's used to be like the old ironworks, but they just put up a wall around it, and occasionally they're going to throw some nice prototype weapons in there for you guys to experiment with. It's all being monitored, so feel free to use it to the full extent. And congratulations, you're now part of jail prison testing.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of how it can work in Shadowrun. You go to jail, or you don't have your sin, you're sinless, and you have no human rights. Mm-hmm. So you could really test out a lot of prototype weapons that way, and it's completely legal to do so. Heck, you could probably videotape it and sell it on one of the higher end networks in the Shadowrun system, and make a decent profit that way.
Very cool.
Dark but cool.
Well, I should remind our listeners that we have email address, thesimulationist@gmail.com. You can continue the conversation, add your own 2 cents on our Facebook page.
If there was a third party, like a D&D thing back in the D20 era that covered this, I would love to hear about it.
Oh, yeah. If you have an article that you can send us a link to or something like that.
There are a few issues of Dungeons & Dragons I haven't got to yet. There's some old ones. Maybe it was covered back in the 80s. Maybe this is a really old idea that has been forgotten and unearthed.
It's come and gone, but I think we put our own little spin on it.
I know the Paranoia campaign setting, you can effectively see it as a prison, and the computer warden is insane. But it's not quite the same thing. You do have a 6-pack of lives, so...
So if you're listening, if you aren't already listening on iTunes, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes. And then
you can subscribe to us over on the whole YouTube. So
yes, we have a YouTube channel that you can subscribe to also, if that's how you prefer to receive this.
Receive your weekly dosage.
Your dosage. And, of course, if you have friends who use alternative podcatchers, or Stitcher, for example, is one, send them our way.
Heck, if you thought this was a good idea, send a copy of this, or send a link to this to your dungeon master and say, hint, hint, buddy, I think we got a good idea towards the end, or maybe towards the beginning if you like the idea there.
We're of course looking for your ideas and your thoughts on D&D and any other topic we cover, and whatever topic you feel like happening to bring up. You happen to feel like bringing up.
Yes, if you've got an idea that you think we should be spending upwards of 90 minutes of talking about, we'll definitely consider it, if not cover it just outright. We love our listeners that way. We'll do that for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. We will. So I think that's all for now.
I think that's been pretty good. I'm definitely going to think more about this prison city myself. The prison city of Hack and Slash. Yeah.
Well, I've been Josh Trelevin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send money.